2025 has been an absolutely incredible year for cozy gamers. And even though this hasn't been a year with the most games that we've ever seen, the releases that we wound up getting are some of the highest quality and best cozy games that we've ever had. And today I'm going to take you through what I think are the top 10 cozy games of 2025. And I did my best to actually try and rank them. But before we get into them, I do want to mention a few honorable mentions. And the first of which is a game that's just come out, and this is Cast and Chill. Now this actually only came out last week, but I was playing this on the PC before it landed on the Nintendo Switch, and thankfully this is a flawless port. This is a genre that I truly need to see more of on the Switch, because it's actually one of my favorites on my PC, and that is an idle game. Now the nice thing about this game is it can also be a pretty active game as well. It just depends on how you choose to play this. But this is a fishing game, and don't worry, this is nothing like the likes of Stardew Valley. The fishing in this is pretty easy. And this will see you travel to different places like serene lakes, rivers, and even oceans to catch fish, sell them, and upgrade your gear. At the beginning of the game, you start with an old rod, a pretty worn down boat, and not really much to your name. But as you progress through the game, you'll be able to upgrade every single aspect of your gear, be it your hooks and lures, your rod, or even your boat itself. Now you can either play this in active mode where you're in control of everything and you do the fishing yourself, or you can play this like a more traditional idle game where the game sort of plays itself. So it does all of the fishing and you get to just do the upgrades. And I love the fact that you can freely switch between them to suit how you want to game in that moment. And I'm such a sucker for a good idle game, as I love to use them while I'm working, and you can just set your Switch up on the desk and have it playing for you, and you can check in momentarily while you're doing your thing. I do also want to mention how unbelievably gorgeous this game is. This is the Nintendo Switch 2 version and it did not disappoint. It looks gorgeous, and honestly it looks exactly the same as it does on my PC, which is perfect. Another game which narrowly missed my top 10 is Date Everything. And if you predicted that this would be a game where you can date every inanimate object in your house, then you would be correct. Because the game begins with you losing your job to AI and then randomly finding some sunglasses appear on your doorstep. Sunglasses which turn every inanimate object in your house into a dateable character. And this has over 100 fully voice-acted dateable objects, each with one of 3 different endings, depending on what dialogue choices you make. Now the strong point in Date Everything is truly the writing. It is absolutely wacky, it's wild, everyone has such unique characters, and the voice acting is done so well. But the best part to me was finding different dateable objects, as truly you can date absolutely everything. And the best way to describe this is it is a lot of fun and full of surprises, and had to be a game that got at least a mention on today's list. Okay, moving on to the top 10, and in 10th place, we have Strange Antiquities. Now, I'm a lover of both puzzle games and also games with a good story, and Strange Antiquities was the best of both worlds. You see, in Strange Antiquities, you get to run your very own antique store in the town of Undermere. But Undermere is not just any ordinary town, because this is a town filled with some very strange goings on and a lot of dark mysteries. And after a couple of minutes of playing the game, you realize that this isn't any ordinary antique store. And the items look a little bit different to everything that you're used to. And essentially your job on the face of things is pretty easy. A customer will come in, they will tell you what they're looking for, and you need to try and match up their description with an item in your store. And essentially how this works is you need to take the description they give you, you need to try and match it to an item using your encyclopedia, and you have to use the description of the item in the book to try and match it to an actual item. Now don't worry, the game starts off nice and simple, taking you through each and every step. But the further you get through the game, the harder things get. But that isn't all there is to Strange Antiquities. You see, the items that you choose to give people or not give them will also determine the story. And it's your choice whether you want to help some of these customers out or by just straight up cursing them. And considering this isn't a very big town, people will remember what you did to them. It's also your job to use some of the information that people give you to go out into the town and try and find antiquities to then sell on. And this again has puzzle elements to it, where you'll have to use the description they give you for a location to try and figure out where that is on the map in front of you. All of these different puzzle elements and also the story meshed together just made for an absolutely fantastic game, and this played wonderfully on the Nintendo Switch as well. So truly, if you haven't picked this up, you might want to give it a go. Then in 9th place, we have Power Wash Simulator 2. Now truly, this probably would have been higher on my list if they had given us a mouse mode option, as it truly feels like such a missed opportunity. Other than there being no mouse mode though, Power Wash Sim 2 has truly been everything that I was looking for in a sequel, as it has everything that I loved from Power Wash Sim, with the game being split into different levels, with each level being satisfying in a completely different way. But in Power Wash Sim 2, everything looks way better than it did on the Nintendo Switch, but it also plays better as well. They've done a lot to streamline the controls and make the whole experience just a little bit more enjoyable. That has made me gravitate to this more than I did with the original Power Wash Sim. They've also added a brand new element to the game where you can decorate your own space. And even though the decorating was not something I personally really cared for, the thing I did really enjoy was cleaning up all of the items to go in your house. You see, when you buy an item on the online store, it comes to you completely dirty. And this let me live out my wildest dreams, which was power wash cleaning a dirty rug, but without any of the smells or the gross stuff to go with it. And the thing is, I always say that I consume cozy games in two different ways. I either just play the cozy game and fully enjoy the experience, or the other way I like to play cozy games is putting on my favorite TV show and playing some games that require less attention at the same time. And Power Wash Sim 2 fits wonderfully into that category. It does also look like Power Wash Sim 2 is already getting DLC added to it as well, so I think this is a game that's going to live on for a long amount of time. In 8th place, we have 2 Point Museum. Again, this was a game that probably would have been higher in my list if they had given it mouse mode controls. And even though I was a little bit skeptical about how much fun it would be to run a museum, thankfully 2 Point have done a fantastic job, and I actually like this so much more than 2 Point Campus. You see, 2 Point Museum is a management game that's unlike anything I've played before. Because even though you can do everything that you're used to in 2 Point games, you know, like being able to make individual rooms and all the management aspects that come with hiring staff and making sure they're happy, this adds on one extra element that has really added to the game, and that is expeditions. You see, in 2 Point Museum, it's not just your job to make the exhibits look good, it's also your job to hunt down items to exhibit at the museum. So this will involve selecting members of staff who will be sent out for several days at a time to try and come home with something worth displaying. And the decisions you make with each of the expeditions will determine how successful they are. And if you make the wrong decisions, your staff may never return. Now, 2 Point Museum is split up into different levels, and the levels do a lot to make sure that the gameplay itself doesn't feel monotonous or stale. You see, every single level you encounter has a completely different challenge. So for example, one museum that you go to is filled with ghosts. Another museum has been targeted by burglars, and this means that you need to set up your museums in completely different ways. And one thing that did surprise me was that I didn't hate playing this with a controller like I thought I would. I do still prefer keyboard and mouse if I can, but the experience on the Switch 2 was actually pretty good. The only reason that I put it this far down the list is 1, the performance is a bit iffy at some points, and 2, this would have done so much good having a mouse mode. In 7th place, we have Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Now, this released all the way back in January. But despite this being one of the first cozy game releases of the year, it's one I keep on coming back to. And that's why it's made my top 10, as this is a live sim where you get to play as your very own Sanrio character. And after crash landing on a strange island, it's your job to try and help all of your favorite Sanrio characters start a brand new life. But the thing that really drew me in with this game is its writing. Because even though the quests themselves are pretty simple and mostly consist more or less of simple fetch quests or crafting, it's the way that you interact with the characters that kept me coming back for more. As this really doesn't feel like a kid's game whatsoever, the writing really feels like it was made for us. And I was actually surprised how much variety they managed to bring to simple fetch quests. Now, despite the fact that this doesn't run on in real life time, this is still a game that tries to encourage you to play it daily, and it very much builds in the fact that there are daily quests for you to do. But thankfully, this isn't a game that will make you feel bad about missing out with some days, some weeks, or even some months worth of gameplay. The one thing that might make or break Hello Kitty Island Adventure for some people is the fact that you are a little bit limited in how much you can do per day. As I said, the entire game is based around daily quests. And there does come a point where you just have no more to do that day, and you need to wait till the next in real life day for everything to refresh. But with that being said, there is a lot to do each and every day in the game, especially around any of the holidays, as there's events constantly running in the game as well. This is truly the perfect game for me when I want to just play something easy, light-hearted, and fun. And the best part is, this seems to be a game with constant updates. And even though this does run pretty decently on the Nintendo Switch, they did just release a Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade as well that makes it look identical to the PC version. Then in 6th place, we have Discounty. This was a mesh of two of my favorite genres. It is a shop sim, but also a life sim. And even though these aren't genres you typically see paired together, Discounty just somehow made it work seamlessly. You see, in Discounty, you're brought into the town to work in your aunt's supermarket. But despite the fact that you're in charge of the day-to-day runnings of the supermarket, seeing you stock the shelves, check out customers, and even order in the stock yourself, you're not actually the one who makes the big decisions when it comes to the supermarket. That is all down to your aunt. And unfortunately, your aunt very much likes money. And this is what makes Discounty truly stand out. You see, in Discounty, the game continues after you've worked your normal 9 till 5, because you also have a life to live out in the town after your shift finishes. And that means that all of the decisions that you make in the supermarket, and more importantly, your aunt has made in the supermarket, has repercussions on just about everyone in the town. And if you cross paths with them, they'll most definitely make that known. And this means that not only does what you do in your shop affect your relationships, but also your relationships affect your shop, be it customers who come in angry or trade deals that you try and form by befriending villagers. I think to me though, the best part about Discounty is that everything that you do has a purpose, because a lot of the shop sim mechanics intertwine with each of the quests you need to do to progress the story. And I found myself loving the life sim aspects and the shop sim aspects equally. The only thing that might influence whether or not you want Discounty is the fact that you don't actually influence the story. There aren't any branching decisions that you make. There is no changing the ending of Discounty. It's linear and it is what it is. But if you go in being okay with that, I think you'll have a fantastic time with Discounty. It's a game that's also receiving a lot of updates, and at this moment in time, they're introducing a new update that will give a lot more endgame content, as I know that's what a lot of people were asking for. But this was truly just a fun mesh of genres that was done fantastically well. Next up, we have Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. This is actually the first time I've played a Rune Factory game for more than just a couple of hours, and the reason I couldn't put it down was that I really loved this weird mesh of genres. You see, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is part RPG, part farm sim, and also part town builder. Now this sees you wake up in a strange land with no memory of who you are or what you're doing there. But it's not long before you find out that the place you're in is called Azuma, and this is a place in dire need of help. You see, a little while ago, a colossal object crashed into the land. And not only did this destroy everything around it, but also soon after, each and every one of the gods vanished. And after finding out that you have the powers of an earth dancer, you're set out on the challenge to restore the land and find each and every one of the gods. And the story itself was made even better by the fact that it was fully voice acted and had full-on cutscenes. But the thing that surprised me the most was actually how much there was to do outside of the story. As not only were there side quests, but you also had relationship mechanics with all of the characters that you meet, and alongside all of this was the town building mechanics. Now, the thing that I really liked about these was they actually did tie into the main storyline, as with every town that you encounter, you're tasked with trying to build it back up again. And this means using all the resources that you find when you do some of the main storyline quests to build buildings, decorate, and manage each of the people to make it into a thriving town once again. This was truly such a unique game and unlike anything I've played before. I do typically say though, this is a better game if you can find it on sale, as full prices are a little bit steep, but if you want a completely different experience, it's definitely worthwhile picking up. Now truly the next 4 games we're going to cover were so difficult to rank, but I think I'm happy with my choices. And in 4th place we have Is This Seat Taken? As I said earlier, I love a good puzzle game, but this has definitely come out as being among some of the best. Because not only was this so unique in its concept, it was also unbelievably fun and even had a little storyline behind everything. And basically the way it works is each of the characters on the screen will have a preference as to where they want to sit. And it's your job to place all of them and try and make them happy. And honestly, the thing that really impressed me with this was how versatile every single level was, with quite a simple concept for a game. Because even though at first this starts off relatively simple, with people having requests such as sitting next to their friends or facing in the direction the car moves, as each level goes on, things definitely ramp up in difficulty. Seeing you take on movie theaters where people are wearing giant hats that mean the people behind them can't see, to weddings where people are very picky about where they sit. And with every new level you encounter, you'll have to think in a completely unique way in order to solve the problems. And the way that I know that a game is absolutely fantastic is when my only complaint is that I wanted more of it. And that is definitely how I felt with Is This Seat Taken? And then in 3rd place, we have Tiny Bookshop. I actually think probably the top 3 could be interchangeable depending on what mood I'm in. But Tiny Bookshop is absolutely incredible. And at the time of filming this, they have just come out with a brand new update that adds even more to the game for completely free. This sees you move to the seaside to open up your very own tiny bookshop in a little shed. But the thing that made me fall in love with the game is the fact that as you progress through it, not only does your tiny bookshop become bigger and better, but you also get to know each of the townspeople and go from becoming a traveling bookshop to being a core part of the community. Now, the gameplay loop of Tiny Bookshop is unbelievably satisfying. Each day begins with you trying to decide where you want to set up your bookshop for the day. And this is a decision based largely on what the weather's going to be like, or if there's any activities going on that day. Once you've then decided which location you're going to, you then need to set your bookshop up. So a good example of this is when it's sunny and you decide to set up by the beach, you're going to want to stock a lot more kids' books because there's going to be a ton of kids there. Then once you've decided how many of each book you're going to put on display, you can open up your bookshop. Now, for the most part, you'll just see people come in, purchase books, and leave. But every now and again, you'll have someone come in and actually ask you for a recommendation. And this is my favorite part of Tiny Bookshop, as it will be your job to try and match their request to a specific book. And as you might have noticed, almost all of the books you see are real books. So you're going to be reading the actual blurb of a book that exists to try and figure out if this matches the customer's needs. The really cool part about that is if you read a blurb of a book and you go, that actually sounds really good, you can just Google it, find the book, and read it. How cool is that? Now, at the end of the day, your tiny bookshop closes up, but that's not where things end, as you get to spend the money that you've earned either upgrading different aspects of your tiny little shed, or by purchasing brand new stock to sell the next day. And And in between all of these shop running elements is the ability for you to chat to each of your customers and get to know them and see them as you repeatedly go to the same location. And the story in this is truly what takes this from being a good game into a fantastic one. I recommend Tiny Bookshop to everyone, regardless of whether you're a huge reader or someone that just dabbles in books like me, as this is truly a fun game regardless of how much you read. Then in second place, we have Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar. I have always been someone who has liked Story of Seasons games, but has never truly fallen in love with one. And that was until now. Now this year, I've actually been feeling a little bit of farming sim burnout. So I was a bit worried when this released that I was going to feel the same fatigue with this one as I have with other farming sims. But thankfully, I had absolutely nothing to worry about. You see, even though Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar has your normal farming sim loop that is in all your previous Story of Seasons games, the fact that you run a weekly market stall changed the gameplay up just enough for this to feel like a brand new experience, as your goal is to try and sell as much produce as possible each week. So this means that you do your normal farming sim routine, like tending to your crops and looking after all of your animals. But when it comes time to end the day, you don't actually sell any of your produce. Instead, it's your job to try and make them into something that will sell well at the weekly market. But the best part about the weekly market was it was all tied in to the story itself. So all of your farming and everything that you're doing has a purpose. And the story was actually what made Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar truly special. You see, for the first time ever, this Story of Seasons game has full cutscenes and voice acting. And to me, this just adds so much personality to each of the characters and got me to care for them in ways I typically wouldn't in a farming sim. But this also made things like events extra special as well, as you could have real conversations and dialogue with some of the characters and full-blown cutscenes for each and every one of the events. And this combination of having fun farming sim mechanics, a weekly market stall mini game that was a lot of fun to not only set up, but also do, and a fantastic story with characters that seemed fully fleshed out and voice acted, quickly made this one of my favorite farming sims of all time. If I was to recommend a farming sim to anyone at this moment, I think this might be my first recommendation, as I just loved it that much. That means in first place is Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. This was my first ever Fantasy Life game, and this truly did not disappoint. But the reason I decided to put this in my #1 spot is not only was this a game I had a fantastic time playing when it first came out, it's also a game I'm repeatedly going back to. And I think that is what made it stand out. You see, Fantasy Life I is truly a game that has a little bit of everything. Because first of all, you have the RPG-like story that sees you travel between the past and the present to try and save this ancient town. But it also has a lot of your typical life sim elements in a way you haven't really seen them before. Because in Fantasy Life, they split up each of the elements that make up a life sim into different jobs. So this will still see you do your regular stuff like fishing, farming, mining, and even crafting, but everything you do has a purpose, as all of these skills will be required to help you out in the main storyline. But the reason I keep on coming back to it is that the story is just one of so many elements that make up this game. You see, not only do you have the main storyline quests and the side quests that go alongside of it, you'll also have job quests, so things you need to do to go and level up each of your jobs to get more skills. Then you have the open world area that is a completely different map to everything that happens in the story, called Moisia. And this is filled with a lot of resources, so it's a place you're going to want to go to often so you can level up all of your gear. There's also dungeons for you to contend with, which again will give you rare loot, which is really useful, and the ability for you to decorate and terraform your very own town. And this means that this is a game that you can pick up for 5 minutes or 5 hours and always have stuff to do, even when you've completed the main storyline. And even though this might sound super overwhelming at first, somehow when you play the game, it really isn't. You see, for the first part, my early experience with the game would be almost entirely playing through the main storyline. And this will gradually introduce each of the different jobs to you and help you level them up slowly. But then when I get to a section of the game I got stuck on and needed to be a higher level at one of my many jobs, that's when I dip into the other elements of the game. And even though at first it sounds like all of these different elements of the game don't connect whatsoever, the more you play the game and the more you get through the main storyline, the more you'll gradually start to dip into each of the different elements of fantasy life. And I know a lot of people do say that the game doesn't truly start until you finish the main storyline. We've also just had the release of a brand new DLC which adds yet another game mode into it, although I will say this doesn't quite fit into the main storyline and the main gameplay quite as well as all the other elements do, but it's still cool that we got it for free, and the announcement that another DLC is on the way soon. This is one of those games where I've just continued to have fun playing it. And I know cozy games with combat aren't for everyone, but in fantasy life, I really didn't mind the combat whatsoever. That's it for my top 10 cozy games of 2025. Leave me your top 3 in the comments down below. And if you want to see 25 incredible cozy games coming in 2026, click this video here.